The evening light stretched thin across the city roofs, the kind of dusk that made every window glow like an ember from another world. In a forgotten quarter where vines climbed the cracked walls of abandoned sanctuaries, Ion sat with 3 students, Mara, Tomas, and Petrus, in a circle of soft silence. They had gathered in what people once called the upper room, though it was only a loft above an antique shop now. Ion looked older than time, but his voice carried no age. "You came because something inside you wouldn't let you sleep," he said. "You felt it, the pulse behind the noise." The 3 exchanged glances. They didn't know whether to nod or pray. He drew a symbol on the dusty floor, 3 interlocking circles. "The world divides itself into 3 kinds of souls," he continued. "Those bound to the clay, those who wander through the soul, and those who remember the light." Mara frowned. "And we?" "You are travelers," Ion said. "You came from the middle circle, the realm of longing. But the spark inside you came from the center, from beyond form." Tomas leaned forward, whispering, "Is that why the world feels wrong? Like something is missing?" Ion smiled faintly. "Because it is missing you, awake. Every time one remembers, the world changes slightly. It is the reason you were sent here." The wind trembled the candle flame between them. Petrus shifted uneasily. "Sent here by who?" Ion's gaze turned toward the darkening window. "Not by who," he said softly, "but by what you were before names." They fell silent. The traffic below hummed like distant waves. Then Ion took a breath and said, "The first truth, there was no fall. Only forgetting. You were light before you were born. When you woke up in a body, you forgot. The journey is remembering while still breathing." Mara's voice quivered. "How do we remember?" He leaned closer. "By stillness first, then service. By forgiving the story that kept you small. And when you no longer believe the story, you will begin to hear the voice again." Outside, thunder rolled like slow applause from heaven. He handed each of them a stone, black, smooth, cold. "Keep this," he said. "It will remind you of the density you chose. When you start to hate the world, touch it. Remember, spirit doesn't despise matter, it redeems it." They sat with their stones as night covered the rooftops. Finally, Ion stood. "I will not see you for a while," he said. "But everything you meet will teach you the rest. The world is your next mentor." He turned to leave, but Mara spoke, "Will we know when we've remembered?" Ion paused at the doorway. "When the world becomes quiet inside you," he said, "and love begins to speak in its place." He left them in silence. The candle flickered low, and something shifted in the air, a pressure, like the space between 2 breaths. The 3 didn't move, but something inside them did, a pulse, faint yet familiar, echoing through the bones. They had no words for it yet. But somewhere deep within, the spark stirred awake. Weeks passed, but the memory of that night clung to them like the scent of rain on stone. Each went their separate way, Mara to the hospitals, Tomas to the city's old libraries, Petrus back to the desert where silence could speak. They didn't know it yet, but the signs Ion had hinted at had already begun to unfold. The first came to Mara one ordinary morning. She was tending to a patient when the world flickered, just for a heartbeat. The sounds in the ward faded, the hum of the machines dissolved into a single, vibrating tone. She blinked, and for a moment, every person in the room shone faintly, their faces lit from within. The tone rose and fell, like someone breathing through the universe itself. Then it was gone. Her hands trembled. Ion's words echoed, "The spark remembers by recognition, not by reason." That night, Mara began writing dreams she never remembered having. Each page filled with symbols, spirals, eyes, suns within circles. She didn't understand, but the symbols comforted her more than language ever had. Elsewhere, Tomas began to experience a different sign. In the echoing corridors of the library, he found the same book placed on his table every morning, no matter where he sat, the fragments of the Watchers. Its pages were blank until his touch filled them with sentences he'd never read before. He tried to photograph them, nothing appeared. He called it madness until one day the text read, "You are not reading. You are remembering." He shut the book and wept without knowing why. Petrus, meanwhile, found himself in the desert. He built no shelter, carried no watch. One night, while staring at the stars, he felt an immense pressure in his chest, as if something inside him were expanding faster than he could breathe. His vision blurred, and then he saw it, threads of light connecting everything. Even the grains of sand hummed with hidden geometry. When he placed his hand on the ground, it pulsed beneath his skin like a living heartbeat. He laughed aloud into the empty air. "I see it," he said, voice trembling. It was never gone. By the next dawn, each of them began to feel the fifth sign, the pressure Ion had warned about. The world around them started pushing back. Mara's co-workers whispered behind her, they said she was seeing ghosts. Tomas's computer failed to boot, his emails disappeared, and the book that had taught him vanished entirely. Petrus was arrested by the border patrol, accused of trespassing on sacred ground. It was as if invisible forces, archons, Ion had called them, were testing the boundaries of their awakening. The signs intensified. When Mara walked through the city, lights flickered. When Tomas touched water, ripples formed in the shape of the same symbol he'd seen in the book. When Petrus closed his eyes, he heard voices murmuring in languages older than fire. Fear came, but so did something else, recognition. Each night, a shared dream returned. The upper room. The candle. The voice saying, "You are light remembering itself." One night, all three awoke at the same moment, miles apart, and whispered the same phrase, "I am not alone." It was the sixth sign, the network awakening. Mara felt energy spiral in her hands like liquid gold. Tomas's chest vibrated as if an unseen instrument played through him. Petrus opened his eyes to see a faint aurora descending over the desert. And then, through that shared silence, Ion's voice returned, not from outside, but from the inside of their thoughts. "Do not mistake the gifts for the goal," it said. "Powers are distractions unless they serve love." The pressure lifted. Calm spread through them like dawn through mist. In the following days, they began to live differently, not saints, not prophets, but quieter, steadier. Mara smiled more. Tomas helped strangers with no reason. Petrus began teaching the children of nomads how to listen to the wind. The spark was no longer hidden. And somewhere, in that upper room, the candle that had long gone out flickered again by itself, steady, golden, alive. The months that followed were not peaceful. Awakening never is. The world seemed to lean harder on them, pressing against the quiet glow they carried. The city grew louder, greedier, stranger, as if sensing a current it couldn't control. Yet beneath all that noise, something else was ripening, awareness moving through the cracks of human life. Mara began to notice that her presence calmed the dying. Families would enter her ward filled with panic, and by the time they left, tears had softened into understanding. She no longer spoke of healing, she was it. Her co-workers didn't understand, and whispers turned to envy. She could have defended herself, but she chose silence, remembering Ion's last teaching, "The awakened do not defend light, they radiate it." Tomas spent his days teaching in a community library that survived on donations. Every time he read aloud from the blank pages of the fragments of the Watchers, the children's eyes shone as though they remembered something too. He stopped trying to explain what he didn't understand. One afternoon, a boy asked him, "Where does the book get its words from?" Tomas smiled. "From you," he said. "From the part of you that never forgot." Meanwhile, Petrus returned from the desert carrying an invisible current. When he walked through markets or temples, strangers paused, sensing something ancient in him. He never preached, never corrected anyone's beliefs. He simply listened, and in that listening, people began to find answers to questions they hadn't asked aloud. Still, shadows followed. The archons, those invisible pressures of fear, division, and exhaustion, tightened their grip on the world. Digital screens blazed like false suns. News fed division, anger became language. The trio felt the collective sleep deepening. One night, they gathered again, drawn without invitation, to the same upper room. It hadn't been cleaned in months, yet the candle still stood upright in the center, as though time had avoided this place. They sat together in silence. No one spoke of miracles or suffering. Only the hum of city lights beneath them filled the space. Then, Tomas broke the quiet. "Do you ever wish," he asked softly, "we could go back to not knowing?" Mara shook her head. Ignorance was never peace. It was numbness. Petrus looked out the window, watching rain glide down the glass. "The world is unraveling," he said. "What if the light we carry isn't enough?" Ion's voice, neither male nor female, neither outside nor inside, rose again between them. "The light was never yours to keep. It passes through. That is how it grows." They closed their eyes. In the vision that came, the city below them became transparent, buildings like glass vessels filled with sleeping sparks. They saw people moving through routines, unaware of the quiet luminescence within. Above the skyline, threads of golden light connected every life, every breath, every prayer half-spoken before sleep. When they opened their eyes, tears streamed silently down their faces. "This," Mara whispered, "is how we change the world, not by force, but by remembrance." Tomas nodded. "By being the proof that awakening is possible." Petrus smiled faintly. "Then we live as bridges." And so they did. Days became years. The trio rarely saw each other, but their resonance moved through others, through a kind gesture at a bus stop, through a stranger's smile that felt inexplicably familiar, through art and music that made hearts tremble for reasons no one could name. Somewhere, a boy dreamed of a candle that lit itself. Somewhere, a dying woman felt peace before her final breath. Somewhere, a child looked at the sky and remembered something ancient stirring within. The spark was alive, passed from hand to heart, from silence to silence. And if you listen carefully, in the space between your thoughts, you can still hear Ion's final whisper. "You were never searching for the light. You are the light, searching for yourself." The world didn't end that night. It began again. Quietly. And so, dear traveler, the story folds back into silence. What began as three people sitting in a dusty room was never about them at all, it was about you. The same spark that flickered in their eyes has always lived behind yours, waiting for a single moment of stillness to reveal itself. The world will keep trying to make you forget, through noise, through fear, through the constant rush of wanting more. But every time you pause and remember who you are beneath the story, the light gets stronger. You don't have to become anything. You only have to uncover what never left. When you look at others, see them as sparks too, some buried deep, some burning bright. That recognition is how we heal the collective dream. Every act of quiet kindness, every breath of forgiveness, every moment you choose awareness over reaction, it all contributes to the great remembering. Maybe you'll walk through your city tomorrow and sense it, a pulse beneath the pavement, a faint golden hum connecting everything. That's the same song Mara heard in the hospital, the same geometry Petrus saw in the desert, the same whisper Tomas found in the pages of an invisible book. The universe is still speaking, you just have to listen gently. If this story reached a quiet place in you, let it continue its path. Share it, so the spark travels further. Leave a like if it helped you feel less alone. Subscribe if you want to keep walking with us through these hidden stories of awakening. Every gesture, however small, becomes part of the ripple. Until we meet again, stay awake, stay kind, and remember. You are the light, learning to see itself.